What up, fight fans? So this is my recap of last night's fight. I actually wanted to do a live chat last night, but I was dumb tired, man. Even like watching the Abner Mares fight, I was kind of like, all right, had enough for one night. But before I get into the fights, I mean, I think there was some criticism as far as, well, positive and negative as far as the actual presentation of the fights or the PBC on NBC. Now, a lot of us were, really excited going into this because this is like, again, the first time in 30 years that we've seen boxing on primetime television, and even the start of it, doing the pre-show and doing the interviews and all the previews and so forth for the fight itself. I mean, I like that. Al Michaels, and it made it look legitimate as far as they're really trying to push the envelope with boxing on prime time. Two things right off the bat. I mean, as far as the entire night are concerned, that I think they either need to change in some way or maybe do without. For one, the whole entrance situation, as far as it looks like Monday Night Raw. You know what I mean? The whole walking down the. I don't think it's needed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I understand what they're trying to do, but I mean, for the most part, it's something that they necessarily don't need. Another part, really, which I think is criticism you've seen from a lot of people that watched the telecast last night, was the commentating. Marv Albert, Ray Leonard, there was no chemistry there, and Ray Leonard, he's had his history on HBO, and he was commentating even before he retired officially, but with commentating, I think it's always a double-edged sword. I'm somebody that I don't listen too much to the commentary per se, but at the same time, you want to be entertained a little bit as far as having play-by-play going on. But I just think that Marv Albert and Ray Leonard aren't the right fit for there to be people to get excited about the fights, but also excited about the telecast and the presentation and so forth. But I mean, we'll see on the next one, which is April 11th. But I think they need to maybe give them one more shot, but obviously look into other options. But for all I know, they probably have Marv Albert and Ray Leonard sign the contract, so nothing we can really do much about there. So on to the fights. I had picked Broner to be, or excuse me, I picked John Molina in an upset, and I got to say I'll eat crow on this one. But Broner put on a really good performance, but John Molina, just I don't know where he was at. I mean, look, he's not. Well, like I said, Broner obviously has more talent, more speed, better movement, for what it's worth. But I think Broner came and showed that he was prepared, even though he came a pound overweight. But obviously didn't matter in the contract. He could have weighed a pound over, but he just looked better prepared for this fight. Yet he stuck to his game plan, and he was using the jab all night. And I think that was giving Molina trouble. And Molina after the fight said, he said he was gonna fight. I mean, you don't want to say that, man, because it just makes you look like you are a limited fighter, man. Look, Broner, after I think the third round, he knew that Molina could pop a little. He landed those two right hands on Broner, and Broner backed up a little bit. But at the same time, Molina should have pressed the fight, should have started hitting the jab, and created some type of openings for himself. And even in the case where Broner's moving, I mean, he didn't cut the ring off very well, just kept kind of following him and was just getting hit with right hands and jabs mostly. I mean, the jab was the number one punch in Broner's arsenal last night. And look, man, he fought well. Broner, I don't see the power there at 140 still, but I think, he's showing some signs that, he still can be one of the top guys. The one issue I had obviously with him is I think there were points in the fight that he could have turned it up a little bit, but I mean, maybe that's just nitpicking in a sense, but I think really the criticism comes more on John Molina, where it's like he had just one punch he was trying to land, and he wasn't trying to do anything for Broner to really open up or even like try to take risks. So I mean, I don't know what I don't know what Molina is talking about, that he was shadow boxing and you know, I mean, it was like he's giving him props, but at the same time blaming him for not fighting. But I'm like, yo, man, that's boxing, man. You you know, it's not about just sitting there and slugging it out. You know, if Broner is applying that style, you got to adapt and try to get at him. And you know, you didn't prove that. So, you know, with Molina, man, I mean, I don't know how many opportunities he's gonna get, man. I mean, this is his third loss in a row. And all three guys are top-level guys, you know, Matisse, Humberto Soto, and Adrian Broner. So at this point, man, like I don't know, you know, who Al Heyman's gonna put him in there with, but you know, I think this is one of his last opportunities at like a top-level fight, and he was on the biggest stage that he could possibly, you know, be on besides HBO or Showtime, and even more than that because of the viewership for network television. So. With Broner, they said that he said he's fighting June 20th in Cincinnati, which leads me to believe he's not going to be fighting a top-level guy, because, I mean, I think the fight that people want to see at this point, being they both fought Molina, and this is a fight at 140 that is high level, is a Broner versus Matisse fight. But, you know, then you start to think about it, and Broner didn't make 140, you know, so it's like, what's going to happen with that? I mean, is he going to be like Canelo, where he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to fight at 155, and Broner's like, all right, well, I'm just going to fight at 141 now. I hope he doesn't get to that, because then she's going to get really ridiculous. But they're saying June 20th is Broner's next date. I don't know if that means a Showtime date or if it's an NBC date, because if they're fighting in Cincinnati, that means he's going to be the headliner. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see as far as that's concerned. But on to the main event. Keith Thurman and Robert Guerrero, and man, what a fight! I mean, look, Thurman dominated the fight, but I think Guerrero showed. I mean, the heart. I mean, it's cliche to say, but you know, the heart of a lion, man. I mean, he was taking a beating in this fight, and he just kept coming. And even after the knockdown, and I think the 9th round, when Thurman hit him with like a 2-piece. He got up, and I'm like, all right, it's over after this. And he showed in that following round, man, he was just trapping Thurman. And I think Thurman at that point started to get a little winded because, you know, mind you, I mean, he doesn't go 12 rounds very much. But at the same time, I mean, I think Thurman, man, I think for people that had some criticism about him or like saying, he's not the truth and he's not this or that, I think he showed his worth last night. And though I wouldn't be one to say he should run in there and fight Floyd right away or any of these guys. I mean, look, this guy's going to be a problem in the next few years between 147 and 154. I just think his I mean, look, the speed, the power, the movement, very disciplined. I mean, a little shaky on the defensive side, but I think that comes in with the fact that he takes some risks to get in there and land some shots. And I think even Guerrero said, he's like, yeah, he hits. I think he told his dad in the corner, like, yeah, he hits hard. So, I mean, it's obvious that Thurman's got power, but, you know, Guerrero's got a hell of a beard, man. I mean, I think because this is the first – I mean, you got to think this is the hardest he's ever faced, you know, being at this level and being at this weight. And, look, man, he got dropped once, but took a lot of punishment in that fight. I mean, I got to think, man, like, even though Guerrero will get fights after this, I think a little bit of him was left in that ring, man. And, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes in boxing. And for Keith Thurman, sky's the limit at this point, man. I mean, who's he to face right now? I mean, he's got options like a Marcos Maidana, maybe. There's Amir Khan at 147, Kell Brooks, Sean Porter. I think Sean Porter is the likely fight. The Maidana fight, depending how many times Keith Thurman's gonna fight, because for those who didn't watch the fight, man, Thurman had almost like a hemo on his head from the head, but that thing was starting to look like Hasim Rahman esque. but they, processed his corner, bringing the swelling down, and he did actually have to go to the hospital after the fight. They were saying he was feeling a little sick, and you got to think it was due to the hemo on his head, but he did get released. He said he's fine, and for Thurman, man, a hell of a performance for him. And I mean, I think this was in a sense his coming out party, and really there was no bigger stage that he could have put it on than on the debut of the the NBC, the boxing on NBC. So I mean, me personally, I think the Sean Porter fight might be the next fight for him. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but overall the night itself in the Abner Mares fight, I mean, I watched half of it, but I got the results after, but that was a tough fight, man, for as much as I saw, but he's another guy we're going to have to wait and see what happens with, because I'm still on the fence as far as what's going to happen when he gets in there with some of these featherweights, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Good night of boxing. The next NBC card is April 11th, Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson, and the undercard with Andy Lee versus Peter Quillen. Now, one thing I liked about the telecast itself was that they were actually promoting some of these fighters like Leo Santa Cruz and Peter Quillen, kind of like previewing them. Obviously they're going to be on NBC, and Deontay Wilder was commentating a little bit, and he's, like I mentioned before, a guy that you would think he's a no-brainer for NBC, American heavyweight, WBC world heavyweight champion. So I like that they were doing that they were kind of previewing the fights coming ahead, and that one's going to be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. So I mean, I'm excited, man. The next PBC card, though, I believe is Spike TV next Friday with Andre Berto and Josecito Lopez, and then following that, I believe the next one would be the April cards. So boxing back on prime time, and the Thurman Guerrero, man, that fight really. I'm interested to see the ratings in this coming week and how they look, because that's really going to determine the future as to the viewership and people getting on board with, oh shit, man, like these aren't just like garbage ham and egg fights, like they're putting on like quality fights. So I'm happy with it, man. So far, like I said, the commentating and the whole ring walk thing they could probably do without. So as I always say, subscribe, hit the links, tune in Monday at 9:30. We're going to do more of a recap of the fights and preview some of the fights that are coming up this month on the GYGB Boxing Podcast. I'll put the link below, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So as I always say, subscribe, hit the links, and I'll be back with you soon. Peace.